This is a story about a text message, just a few simple words, that completely dismantled my life and started a chain reaction I still can't believe happened. My name is Leo. I was 20, fresh out of the awkward teen years, and honestly, the biggest thing on my mind was passing my organic chemistry final. I was sharing a cramped, but cheap, apartment near campus with my roommate, Alex. Alex was a good guy, maybe a little too focused on his gaming console, but reliable. We had the usual college guy setup: pizza boxes, worn-out furniture, and a persistent smell of microwave popcorn. But then there was Alex's sister, Chloe. Chloe was a few years older than us, maybe 24 or 25, and she lived in the apartment complex right above ours. She wasn't a student anymore. She had some kind of cool job downtown that she never really talked about. She was this incredible mix of effortless cool and complete mystery. She'd occasionally come down to borrow salt or complain that we were too loud during our midnight FIFA tournaments. Whenever she was around, the whole apartment felt lighter, like someone had turned up the contrast dial on reality. I tried to play it cool, but every time I saw her, my chest would get this tight, nervous knot. She was just magnetic. The thing is, I had absolutely no reason to think she even noticed me as anything more than Alex's clumsy, studious roommate. I was the guy with the slightly too big glasses and the constant coffee stain on his hoodie. She was this polished, sophisticated adult. The night it happened was just another Thursday. Alex was passed out on the couch, headphones still on, lost in some online world. I was hunched over my laptop, textbook open, desperately trying to memorize the names of complex molecules. The apartment was silent except for the low hum of the air conditioning. My phone, which was face down next to my coffee mug, buzzed. It was a single vibration, not a call, just a text. I picked it up, expecting it to be a reminder from the library, or maybe my mom asking if I needed laundry money. The number was unfamiliar, but the profile picture was definitely Chloe. A close-up, slightly blurred photo of her laughing. My heart immediately started hammering against my ribs. Why was Chloe texting me? We had exchanged numbers once months ago when Alex was out of town, and she needed me to let her into the apartment to grab something. But we had never actually talked. I unlocked the screen. The message wasn't long. It wasn't formal. It was just a direct, simple instruction: come upstairs, but don't knock. I stared at the screen. What did that even mean? Why wouldn't she just text Alex, her brother, who was literally 10 feet away? And why the specific instruction not to knock? A crazy jolt of adrenaline shot through me. My mind raced through 1,000 possible, completely ridiculous scenarios. Was something wrong? Did she need help? Or was this something else entirely? The silence of the apartment felt deafening now. I looked over at Alex, still oblivious on the couch. Should I wake him up? No, the text was to me. I gripped the phone tighter, the screen shining her cryptic message back at me. I knew, deep down, that walking up those stairs was a terrible idea, that it was breaking some unspoken roommate code, maybe even just common sense. But the pull was too strong. I had to know what was going on. What I didn't realize was that the simple act of putting on my shoes and walking toward the door was the last moment of my old life. Because when I opened the door to the hallway, I wasn't just walking up one flight of stairs. I was walking straight into a mystery that would change absolutely everything. What I found when I got to her door was not at all what I expected, and it wasn't the kind of situation you could just walk away from. And the moment I saw the lockbox next to her frame, I knew I was already in too deep. The whole setup of our lives had been pretty stable until that text arrived. Alex and I had been friends since high school chemistry class, and our dynamic was predictable. He handled the social life, and I handled the grades. Our relationship with Chloe, however, was strictly peripheral. To Alex, she was just his slightly annoying older sister who moved back to the city after college. To me, she was an enigma that lived one floor up. I tried to analyze Chloe before, the way I analyzed complex chemical compounds. What made her tick? I observed her brief interactions. She was always impeccably dressed, even when just walking the dog. She'd bring down these incredible homemade cookies for Alex occasionally, but she'd hand them to me with a quick, polite smile and almost immediately pivot to checking her phone, as if I were a delivery person. It was that detachment, that sense of being slightly out of reach, that fascinated me the most. She wasn't playing hard to get. She genuinely seemed too busy living her amazing life to notice me. And I respected her boundaries. I'd never try to get closer, never searched for her on social media, never even stayed too long when she was around. I understood the boundary between Alex's sister and Alex's roommate. It was a clear, bright line. Until now. The lockbox I saw wasn't on her door, it was tucked into the corner of the hallway wall, near the emergency stairwell, the kind of small, gray metal box that realtors used to hold keys. It didn't look like it belonged in a residential hallway. As I walked past it, my hand instinctively grazed the cool metal. Why was it there? And why was my heart telling me that it was connected to her message? I reached her door, apartment 2B. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone. The simple text kept looping in my head. Come upstairs, but don't knock. The implication was immediate and unsettling. She didn't want Alex, or anyone else, to know I was here. I hesitated, my ear inches from the wood paneling. I couldn't hear anything. No music, no TV, no voices. Just a profound, heavy silence. I raised my hand to tap lightly, but then I remembered the instruction. Don't knock. Why the secrecy? Was this some kind of sick joke? A setup? The suspense was eating me alive. Every rational part of my brain screamed, go back downstairs. This is weird, but the image of Chloe, the mystery she held, was pulling me forward. I finally reached out and turned the polished brass handle slowly, carefully, so the latch wouldn't click. The door swung inward on silent hinges. The apartment was pitch black. No lights were on. For a split second, I thought the text was a mistake, that she was out, and I had just broken into her apartment. I started to panic, ready to silently back out. But then, from the deepest corner of the living room, a single sound cut through the darkness, chilling me to the bone. It wasn't a voice. It was a ragged, choked sob. Someone was definitely in there, crying. And as my eyes adjusted to the faint light leaking in from the street lamp outside, I realized I couldn't see Chloe. Instead, a figure was hunched over, motionless, next to the balcony door. And what they were hunched over wasn't furniture. It was a suitcase, lying open on the floor. But the most terrifying detail was the smell, a faint, sharp metallic scent that definitely shouldn't be in an apartment. And just as I took one shaky step inside, ready to whisper her name, I heard the faint snick of the deadbolt locking behind me. I wasn't alone, and I was definitely trapped. I froze, my back instantly pressed against the now-locked door. My blood ran cold, and the sudden realization that someone, perhaps Chloe, had locked us in together was almost as terrifying as the situation itself. Chloe, I whispered, the sound feeling enormous in the suffocating darkness. Is that you? The hunched figure didn't move. The sobbing continued, quiet now, almost muffled, as if the person was desperately trying to stop. The metallic smell was stronger here, a coppery tang that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. My mind, usually so precise and analytical, was spiraling into pure panic. I needed a light. I fumbled for my phone, my hands slick with sweat, and managed to turn on the flashlight, sweeping the narrow beam across the living room. The light landed on the figure. It was Chloe, but not the Chloe I knew. She was sitting on the floor next to the balcony door, which was slightly ajar. Her expensive blazer was rumpled. Her face was stained with tears and smeared makeup, and her hands were clasped tightly around a large, hard-sided silver suitcase. Her usually vibrant expression was replaced by a hollow, terrified blankness. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in a single night. "Leo," she whispered, her voice rough and barely audible. She didn't look up. "Why did you come? I told you not to knock. You can't be here. You texted me, Chloe. You told me to come up. What is going on? What's that smell?" I pointed the phone light at the metallic stain on the carpet near the suitcase, trying to ignore the churning dread in my stomach. She finally looked up, and the look in her eyes stopped my heart. It was a raw, naked fear that didn't belong on her confident face. She didn't look dangerous. She looked like a victim. She looked utterly helpless. "The smell doesn't matter," she said, her voice shaking violently. "It's what's in the case that matters. And now that you're here, you're involved." He saw the text. He knows you're here. My breath hitched. Who saw what text? "Chloe, who are you talking about?" She swallowed hard, turning her attention back to the silver case. It was latched shut, but I could see a few droplets of something dark pooling on the plastic shell. "The man who owns this," she mumbled, clutching it tighter. "He's coming back for it. He thinks I stole it, but I didn't. I had to hide it." I couldn't leave it downstairs. And now I need you to take it and walk away before the door opens." As she said those words, a sound I hadn't noticed before became terrifyingly clear. The faint, rhythmic thud-thud-thud of heavy footsteps ascending the exterior fire escape right outside the balcony door. And just as Chloe shoved the heavy silver suitcase toward me, the latch on the balcony door started to rattle violently. The rattling of the balcony latch wasn't a gentle sound. It was sharp, urgent, and deliberate, like someone was trying to force their way in without making too much noise. The fire escape was the last place you'd expect someone to come up unless they were intentionally bypassing the main entrance. My mind finally snapped out of its shock and into fight-or-flight mode. I grabbed the silver suitcase she had pushed toward me. It was shockingly heavy, far heavier than anything a woman would typically carry, and the metallic tang hit me full force as I lifted it. It felt like it was filled with bricks, or maybe something denser, colder. "We have to move," I hissed, pulling her toward the front door. "We can call the police. We can run down to my apartment. Alex is there." Chloe gripped my arm, her nails digging in, her strength surprising in her distressed state. "No, Leo, you don't understand. If we call the police, he'll know. And Alex can't be involved. That's why I texted you. Because you're quiet, you're invisible, and you came alone. You need to leave through the main door, go back downstairs, and put this case somewhere safe. Somewhere he'd never think to look. But what about you?" The panic in my voice was rising. The rattling at the balcony stopped, replaced by a low, scraping sound, like something metal being wedged into the lock mechanism. "I'll handle him," she said, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper I'd never heard from her before. "I have to stall him. You have maybe 30 seconds before he gets in. Go. Now." She shoved me hard toward the locked front door. In the weak light from my phone, I saw her grab a heavy, dark iron poker from the fireplace hearth. She wasn't running. She was preparing to fight. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a drama or a misunderstanding. This was truly dangerous. How do I unlock this? I gestured wildly at the front door's deadbolt, which she had secured. "It's a thumb latch. Turn the lever, idiot. And listen to me. This is the most important thing. If he catches you, do not tell him you got this from me. Tell him you found it. Tell him Alex gave it to you. Lie. Don't mention my name." Her urgency was absolute, a lifeline thrown to me in a raging storm. I twisted the thumb latch, the heavy clunk of the deadbolt retracting sounding deafeningly loud. I pulled the door open just enough to slip out, cradling the ridiculously heavy silver case. As I stepped back into the dark, quiet hallway, I heard the sound that confirmed everything. The sharp, metallic pop of the balcony lock finally giving way, followed immediately by the thump of a heavy boot landing inside Chloe's apartment. I didn't wait. I didn't breathe. I shut her door silently, quickly, and raced down the single flight of stairs. My heart was pounding so hard I thought Alex would hear it through the floorboards. I was down the stairs in 3 huge strides, bursting into the safe, familiar dimness of our own living room. Alex was still snoring softly, headphones on. The smell of old pizza and college life was a sudden, comforting reality check. I stood there, panting, clutching the case, totally visible from the front window, and realized I had a massive, potentially lethal problem sitting in my hands. I couldn't just leave it there. I couldn't wake Alex. I couldn't call the police, not with Chloe's terrifying warning ringing in my ears. I had to hide it. Now. But where do you hide something this heavy, this important, this clearly stolen, in a tiny, messy college apartment? As I looked around desperately, my eyes landed on the one spot in the room that had always been off limits, the only place Alex actually kept locked. And right as I started dragging the silver case toward that secluded corner, I heard the squeak of the stairs starting to descend, slowly, deliberately, one creak after another. He was already coming down. I yanked the suitcase, fighting against its dead weight, toward the back corner of the living room, the spot where Alex had his special locked storage trunk, supposedly full of old family heirlooms he never wanted touched. It was a dumb plan, but I was out of time. The slow, heavy footsteps outside were now directly on the landing outside our apartment. I crouched down, trying to wedge the silver case behind the trunk, when my phone, which I had jammed into my pocket, buzzed. It was a text message. A new one, from Chloe's number. My hands trembled as I pulled it out, expecting a desperate warning. Instead, I saw a picture. It wasn't a selfie or a map. It was a close-up photo of the inside of the very suitcase I was hiding. The case wasn't full of money or drugs, or even weapons. It was filled entirely with meticulously organized, thick bundles of high-level government documents marked with bright red, unmistakable top-secret stamps. The kind of documents that could get someone disappeared forever. And beneath the image, a single, cryptic text arrived. The man is not the problem. It's what he protects. The secret is Alex. My blood ran cold. The man was outside. The classified papers were in my hands. And somehow, my oblivious roommate, sleeping 10 feet away, was the key to this entire, terrifying mess. The footsteps stopped right outside our door. They weren't moving anymore. The silence was heavier, more dangerous than the noise. I was frozen, crouching behind Alex's trunk, the silver case pressed against my chest, the image of those classified files burned into my mind, and Chloe's chilling text echoing in my ears. Asterisk, the secret is Alex. Asterisk Alex, who couldn't balance his own checkbook. Alex, who was currently drooling on the couch. How could he be the secret? I heard a slight scrape, like a key or a thin piece of metal, being inserted into the lock. Whoever this man was, he was methodical, not panicked. I had milliseconds. I couldn't let him find me with the case. I had to follow Chloe's last, desperate instruction, lie. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to completely hyperventilate. I pushed the silver case under the sofa, a ridiculously bad hiding spot, but the only one available, and stood up slowly. The door clicked open, and a man stepped inside. He wasn't a hulking monster. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, with the flat, emotionless eyes of a professional. He didn't even look at Alex, who was stirring on the couch. His gaze locked onto me. "Where is it?" His voice was a low, dangerous rumble. He didn't ask what it was, he knew. I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered, trying to sound confused and sleepy, like a student who was just interrupted. He didn't move toward me. He just gestured toward Alex with his chin. "The brother. Where did he put the package?" "Chloe's not talking." "Alex." I forced a confused laugh. "He's been asleep since 7. He doesn't have anything. Maybe you have the wrong apartment." The man took one slow step forward. "I do not make mistakes, Leo. The text message from Chloe led me here. The message you received right after I spoke with her. He knew my name. He knew about the text. You have the contents of the safe. Where is it?" I swallowed, glancing at the sofa. I found a silver case in the hallway near the fire escape. I thought it was Alex's. This was my lie. I brought it in here to give to him when he woke up, but I put it back in the hall when I realized it was probably lost property. The man's eyes flickered to the door. I saw the briefest moment of confusion, then annoyance. He turned to leave, his mission now shifting back to searching the exterior hallway. "Wait," I said, unable to stop myself. "Is Chloe okay?" He stopped, his hand on the doorknob. He looked back at me, a ghost of a cruel smile on his lips. "Chloe is exactly where she needs to be. She was useful for the access, but what she didn't realize is that she was being used to hide the case from her brother, not for him." He paused, and the final twist hit me, cold and hard. "Alex isn't just a college student, Leo. He's the son of a deep-cover operative. This case was his inheritance. And Chloe? She was just the lookout I hired, posing as his sister. She wrote that note because I told her to, so she could frame you for the theft." He opened the door, stepping out, leaving me alone with the sleeping brother and the hidden case of top-secret documents. But as the door clicked shut, I realized the full horror. Chloe hadn't texted me to save me. She texted me because she knew the man was watching, and she had to fulfill her assignment. But the last, cryptic text, warning me about Alex, proved she had done one final, devastating act of betrayal against her handler to save me. Now I was staring at Alex, who was stirring, finally waking up, and I had no idea if he was my friend, a victim, or the most dangerous person in the room. The man in the suit was gone, retreating back up the stairs, convinced I had returned the case to the hallway. I didn't move. My gaze was fixed on Alex, still groggy, stretching his arms above his head and pulling his headphones off. "Dude," Alex mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "What's with the heart attack? You're breathing like you ran a marathon. Why are you staring at me?" I looked at the silver case tucked beneath the sofa. I looked at Alex, my roommate, my friend, the guy who argued with me over the utility bill. And then I remembered the photo of the classified documents and Chloe's chilling final text. Asterisk, The secret is Alex. Asterisk, I had a choice right then, a catastrophic, life-altering choice. I could expose the whole thing, scream about Chloe being a fake sister, and reveal that the fate of God knows what classified information was resting under our cheap couch. Or, I could protect the person Chloe risked everything to warn me about. I took a shaky breath and plastered a tired, believable smile on my face. Sorry, man, I said, my voice only slightly strained. Organic chemistry. I think my brain just short-circuited. I thought I saw a huge spider, but it was just a dust bunny. Need a beer? Alex laughed, the familiar, easy sound of a guy who genuinely had no idea the chaos swirling around him. Yeah, definitely. Sounds like you need it more than I do. I knew then that Chloe's warning wasn't about Alex being the enemy. It was about protecting his innocence. He was the secret, the unsuspecting son of a powerful operative, and the man who had just left would be back, using every resource to get the case back to its rightful owner. The case wasn't stolen from Alex. It was stolen for him, to keep the classified documents safe until he was ready. Chloe hadn't just been a hired lookout. She must have developed an attachment, an overriding need to protect him from the operation she was supposed to be running. That final text to me was her redemption, a signal fire telling the one person who wasn't involved to look deeper. The next morning, Alex was back to his usual self, complaining about an assignment. Chloe's apartment upstairs was dark and silent. There was no sign of her. The lockbox near the stairwell was gone. It was like the entire night had been a terrifying, shared hallucination. Except for the case. I told Alex I found a huge bag of old textbooks I needed to study and moved the heavy silver suitcase into the deepest recesses of his locked trunk while he was in the shower. I didn't tell him what it was. I couldn't. Life went back to normal, or what passed for it. I passed my final. Alex stayed oblivious. But now, every time I look at him, I see the weight of what I know, the massive secret I'm now guarding. I became the silent protector, the invisible link Chloe had counted on. The note she wrote, not on paper, but in 7 simple, digital words, forced me into a world I was never meant to inhabit. I never forgot it, and I never will. I'll spend the rest of my time here, being the boring roommate, the guy with the glasses, until the day Alex realizes who he is. And until that day, the fate of those top secret files, and the safety of the friend who sleeps 10 feet away from me, rests entirely on how well I can hide a silver suitcase under a pile of old socks and textbooks. But the question that keeps me awake every night isn't about the files, or even the man in the suit. It's about Chloe. Where is she? Did she escape? And did she ever find a way to let Alex know the truth without putting herself, or him, in even greater danger? Because somewhere out there, there's a woman who gave up everything to send me a text, and I just hope she's okay. And I know, one day, she'll try to reach out again. The waiting, the silence, is the hardest part.